So next we're going to talk about audio and audio levels. So as we said before, your audio tracks are the ones that sit directly below your video. Now in most cases, or at least in many cases, your audio is going to be brought in attached to your video itself. Whereas in other cases, you may be bringing in tracks from CDs, other sort of recordings that you have, in which case you bring them in the exact same way that you would bring any sort of a video file in. And I also just want to mention now, you would do the same things for photographs, which we'll talk a little bit more later, where you simply go to your project, you find, say this is just going to be a picture, drag it in, there it is, easy enough. And then the same thing is true of a song. So we're just going to go to music, we're just going to pick the song from the Beatles, and you can either listen to it, open it up and listen to it up in the source window, where you can play it, or you can go through and pick in and out points. So I'm just going to pick a random in and out point. You then just grab a hold of that track. Don't grab it up in the window because it's not going to do anything. You just grab it in this little tiny green bar below it. Grab it and drag it down into your audio tracks. Let it go, and there it is. Or as always with every type of clip, you can just bring it directly in from the project itself. One thing to just make sure you do whenever you bring any sort of track in, any sort of footage in, whether it be audio, video, pictures, anything, make sure that you set it either after the clips that are currently in the timeline or below them, wherever they're going to go. Just make sure that you don't set them on top, because if you do, what it's going to do is it actually deletes those clips. So it covers them up, replaces them, and then it deletes them. Either way of bringing the audio track in is perfectly fine, but once you have it in here, now what are you going to do with it? Now in some cases, if you're just going to bring a bunch of photos in and you edit them all together and you bring a song in from a CD, your audio levels on the CD, because it's already been professionally mixed, they're already going to work. It's going to work out well for you. And I'm actually going to turn the volume down on this so you don't have to listen to it, but we can watch it. And we can see on this particular Beatles song where the waveforms are, what the volume level is. And in digital music, or anytime you're working with anything digitally, you want your audio levels to be sitting at around -12. It can go up to -6, but you definitely don't want it topping out at 0 or turning red, basically, or it's going to sound very tinny on you. So let's just say, you can see this one getting a little bit higher. Let's just say that your audio is either too loud or it's too quiet and you need to adjust it. So we're just going to zoom in a little bit so we can see this a little bit better. Easiest way to do this is by using something called the rubber band tool. To use the rubber band, all you have to do is go over to the track that their audio is in and simply open up the little drop-down menu, or the little drop-down arrow, and it's going to show you the waveforms. So this is going to be helpful because you'll be able to actually see what's going on with your audio. Also, when you open that up, what it does is it shows you this little yellow line. This is the rubber band, and it controls your audio level. Now you've had one the entire time up in your video track. In the video, it controls the opacity. Just to show you real quick what that'll look like, if we watch the video, this is what it looks like normally. Just back it up a little bit. And if we pull the opacity down, it makes it more clear. So we're actually seeing through the picture into the black behind it. When we start layering video or images in a little bit, you'll be able to see one of the tricks, or some of the tricks that you could do with this. So the rubber band in the video track controls the opacity, so the rubber band in the audio track controls your volume level. So if we go down just a little tiny bit to the song, we turn the volume up on the speakers so you can hear it, and as we listen to it, and not only can you hear it, you can also see what the audio levels are. Now let's just say, for argument's sake, that we think that's too loud. All we have to do is simply grab onto the rubber band and physically drag it down. Now you can see it going lower in the track. As we watch it, it's lower in volume, and it also sounds lower through your headphones. Now keep in mind, adjusting your rubber band is not the same thing as adjusting the volume in your headphones. Adjusting the volume in your headphones just is adjusting what you're physically hearing. It's not adjusting the output of the project itself. Kind of a way to think about this is like when you're watching TV and all of a sudden one commercial comes on that's a lot louder than the rest. It's simply because the output was higher. It has nothing to do with the volume on your TV itself. So why you'd want to adjust the volume level, other than simply raising it and lowering it to make it sound better for you, is because now we can start doing something called using a keyframe. What a keyframe is it's basically like a start sign and a stop sign for the video project. So the computer knows between point A and point B, it needs to do something. So for example, if we were to say in this particular song, we want it to fade out at the end. What we can do is we're just going to make the volume normal level, nice and high at the beginning. And now we add a keyframe, which is right here. So if you put your play bar where you want that volume to change and press add keyframe. When we press that button, all of a sudden a little dot shows up. That little dot is the keyframe. Now if you add just one, it's not going to do anything. But if we go to the end of the clip, or really anywhere, but we're just going to say for argument's sake the end of the clip, and add a second keyframe, now you can control that volume rubber band by using the two keyframes. So at this point we're just going to drag, as we just did, this keyframe down so it was at normal volume. Now we drag it down to nothing. So now the computer knows that at this point, at this keyframe right here, it needs to be full volume, and at this keyframe, it needs to be at 0. So as we listen to it, we can hear it both through the headphones as well as see in the audio levels that it's actually going to get quiet for us. So it's pretty quick, so let me do it again. Now why that's convenient, why that's good to use, Now why that's convenient and why that's good to use is because you can add as many keyframes as you want. And you can either add a keyframe just as I showed you by hitting this button, or an easier way, kind of a cheat way, is we go over to the tool palette and use the pen tool, and we can just click them in. And just add as many as you want. And you can pull it up, you can pull it down, you can make them higher. And the volume, is going to follow that path. Another reason why you would want to use keyframes is to help you to layer audio. Let's just say, for example, that you're working on a project where you have somebody in an interview, and underneath that you're playing music in the background. Or in a more simple example, maybe you're making a video of all of your home videos. So you have music playing and then you have all the videos of you as a kid. But in one of those videos, somebody starts saying something that you want to keep. If you ever wanted to just layer video clips or audio clips, you simply stack them on top of each other. So in this case, we just put another audio track underneath it. So when we listen to it, it's going to play both the Beatles song as well as this YouTube video. It plays them at the same time. And as you could hear, that was absolutely terrible because there was no sort of audio adjustments, there was no volume. They were both just playing at plain old regular volume, which makes it really hard to hear. So what you might want to do is, I'm just going to shorten this video clip to make the example more obvious, is in your background, just to zoom in a little bit, in your background music, maybe you want it to be at a high volume at first, but then as soon as the talking comes in, you want the background to get a little bit more quiet. So you can go over and grab your pen tool, as we said, add a keyframe. We're just going to say about there, because once they're in, you can actually move them around. And then another one towards the end of him talking. Go back to the arrow, and we can bring this down a little bit. So now what you see is happening is at this point it's at full volume, and it drops just a little bit as he starts talking, and then when he's done talking, it comes up a little bit more. So this may not be perfect because we're not really listening to it, but we can get an idea of what it's going to sound like. So we back up a little bit, play it. Still not great because it was a very short example, but at least this way you have an idea of how you can start layering your sound.